Happy Saturday, everyone. We've got some huge changes on the way with the first of two stronger cold fronts, with the first coming in by next week. That's going to allow some frost and freezes across those areas into the east. Then indications of a much stronger cold front that may unfold by the time we head into that last week of October. So let's break down the details for you in this update. Take a look at the overall temperature anomalies, what they're likely going to look like by the time you wake up on Wednesday morning. All those areas across much of the upper Great Lakes into the Ohio Valley, even in down to the southeast. Some of those areas are going to be a pretty chilly air mass and wake up to some frost and freezes across this region. For the central U.S., you kind of get a little bit more of a glancing blow with this cooler shot of air, but areas out west will likely miss out it altogether. So if we take it, expand the view and take a look at the overall jet stream, why this is unfolding, here's a pretty significant storm that's likely going to try to build across the Aleutian Islands. That's going to continue diving into the far western regions of the U.S., especially the Pacific Northwest. That's going to bring some elevated rains for them. But you can see the zonal flow that continues to unfold with the strong Pacific jet stream that's been the culprit of all that warmer air over the last couple of weeks. That will continue for at least the western regions, while you definitely see across the central and eastern two-thirds the beginning stages of that kind of a buckle in the jet stream. And that's going to be the first indication. It's going to allow that cooler air to start sinking further south. And so by the time you wake up on Wednesday morning, even all those areas across, even into Alabama, could see portions of those areas into a first frost of the season. So what's been unfolding over the last couple of weeks has been, obviously, we've had two major hurricanes with Helene and then Milton. And here's the precipitation over the last week, right? One thing about big storms is they just tend to take up all the energy of the atmosphere and kind of dump it out all in one place. We saw that with Helene, and we saw that again with Milton. And this is the precipitation over the last 7 days, folks, across the U.S. And much of the lower 48 is kind of bone dry right now. And that's been the culprit of all those heavier, big time major hurricanes that unfolded over the United States over the last 2 weeks. That's kind of sucked up all the energy and kind of feast or famine across those regions. And here is the overall temperature anomalies by the time we head into tomorrow. Yeah, it's going to be a warm weekend, even a hot weekend for areas across the West. I mean, some areas across Texas. Look at that, folks. I mean, we're talking upper 90s, record-breaking temperatures, maybe even some isolated areas of 100 degrees. Kind of unheard of for the middle of October. That's how warm this air mass is. But further to the north, we're definitely seeing the beginning stages of that cool down, at least the first cool down entering the upper Great Lakes and for those areas across New England. And that cold front, that jet stream, will likely buckle even further as we head into Tuesday. So you got the predominant Pacific, flow continuing out west, but the buckling in the jet stream will likely start to unfold, dragging down those cooler anomalies into the Ohio Valley and much of the mid-Atlantic, and well as into the Northeast, and eventually head even further south than that as we head into Wednesday. So by the time we go into Tuesday morning, you can definitely going to be feeling the effects of that cooler shot of air. Some of these areas are going to be dropping below the freezing line, especially for portions of Wisconsin, back into Michigan, and further south, going into the 30s and then modifying back into the 40s for low temperatures as we head into your Tuesday morning. And those are your actual temperatures that could likely unfold. Those into the blue area, that is a freeze, folks. So yes, we're talking freezes coming up, even 20s back into the Dakotas and to Minnesota, portions of Iowa, widespread 30s and 40s across much of the Ohio Valley and the mid-Atlantic, and further south into Tennessee, about 45 degrees. I mean, even Arkansas could get, likely into the action with 40s for low temperatures as we head into your Tuesday morning. But going into Wednesday, that's when I think it kind of maxes out, especially for those areas further south. Look at the Jetstream. Look how far south it actually buckles. Yeah, that's not a misprint. That goes almost all the way into Louisiana, folks, especially for those areas into the Carolinas and even the South. I mean, yes, Florida is likely going to get into this action with much cooler air mass coming in with this deepening trough and the buckling of the jet stream that will likely unfold and deepen by the time we head into Wednesday morning. And these are your temperatures by Wednesday morning. That's when some of these areas could experience a frost and freeze, especially into those blue shaded areas. So definitely this is a little bit early for this time of year. Clear skies is going to be one of those culprits to allow that radiational cooling to really maximize the benefits of that cooler air sinking well to the surface, and especially that drier air that will be coming on the backside of this system, allowing those temperatures to really start to plunge in the nighttime hours. So yes, it's going to be definitely chilly for, good part of Arkansas, but, essentially Mississippi and Alabama, back into Georgia, into the Carolinas. Much of these areas are going to be waking up into the 30s, and then more modified as you swing out further into the central, and even more modified as you swing out further out to the west. But it also is going to be still dry. So I am expecting the atmosphere really not to recover much of anything, at least next week. The only instability is going to be where that trough will be coming in. So for those areas across the upper Great Lakes into the mid-Atlantic and back into the Northeast, you are going to be seeing that precipitation, but that's most where the precipitation is going to lie, and most of the cooler anomalies is going to lie as well. So if you take the anomalies from today all the way through, Wednesday, this is kind of what it looks like with this cooler air mass, especially hitting those eastern regions across the Great Lakes through the Ohio Valley, and the big cooler push of air will shift into the southeast and into the East Coast, while it's more of a modified version as you swing in the central U.S. And then most of the western regions will miss out altogether with this cool front and the precipitation as well. So you've got that dip in the jet stream, that first system that's coming in from the Aleutian Islands. That's going to be the culprit that's going to bring this rain mass into areas of Washington and Oregon and areas of Northern California. Pretty common for this time of year, but you can definitely see for the rest of the country kind of bone dry back behind it. And there's the significant trough, that the buckling in the jet stream, that's going to allow some of that rain to unfold a good, 1 to 3 inches likely between now and Thursday morning across the upper Great Lakes into portions of the mid-Atlantic and especially into the Northeast, while the rest of the country, which is actually a good thing, is going to be dry across the Southeast, and those areas across the Carolinas will continue to dry out as well. So if we take it a step further and look at the tropics and what's happening, because we still got about 6 weeks left, there's pretty quiet right now, folks. I mean, it's been really busy over the last couple of weeks, so we can enjoy this respite, at least for right now. Not much happening out there across the Atlantic. We've got Leslie that's just on the verge of diminishing and phasing out and won't be even a storm any longer. And then we also have Invest 94L. It's still under investigation. It's got a 40% probability. It's got a very short window if it's going to become a storm or not. But overall, besides that, there's not much happening really over the next 10 days. And if we can look at some of the ensemble members, where we're looking at, if our next storm system, if it is likely going to form, is where it typically is likely forms this time of year, is in the Caribbean. So we do have some elevated risk down there well south into across Central America. We could start to see maybe indications. This is, of course, 7 days away. This is at least 7 to 10 days away. If something is going to form, this would likely be our next little hot spot south of Jamaica here, down there into the Caribbean. But you can see most of the United States is not going to be any impact whatsoever from a storm over the next 7 to 10 days. So by the time we head into Thursday of next week, this is your October 17th time frame, this is what we're looking at. So you've got that first trough that comes in, and then even though it's going to be a glancing blow, it's going to modify that ridge and lift it further north. So that's definitely going to allow so that some of those cooler air to sink further south, so you won't be baking into the 90s and the triple digits across the west. You'll start to modify those temperatures, at least not cold by any stretch of the imagination, but at least modify those temperatures from what you've seen as of late. But we are going to be seeing a little bit of a cooler shot of air that's coming in, especially in the higher elevations. You can't rule out some snow breaking out across British Columbia, for those areas across Idaho into Montana, back into Wyoming. But it's still, I am expecting a fairly drier air mass on Thursday. As we head into Friday, there's that cold front. Now remember, this area has been really dry. So when the radar beam shoots upwards, looking at 7,000, 8,000, 9,000 feet. So even though this does look like a lot of precipitation, most of this will likely start to evaporate as it's falling to the surface, because all those layers in the atmosphere are really dry, and they have been dry. So it takes a while to erode all those levels. And by the time we do that, here's the surface map by the time we head into Friday night. And there's probably not going to be much of anything coming out of that cool front. Yes, these could bring some showers and thunderstorms, but this line's probably not going to be anything of significant. And as we move through that Friday night, head into the Saturday, you can see it kind of evaporating, right? So as it moves into that drier air mass that's been unfolding over the last couple of weeks, you can definitely see it starts to feel the effects of that drier air mass, and they just kind of fizzle out as it reaches the surface. So I'm really not even expecting much precipitation with this cool front, especially across the middle part of the country as we head into Friday and Saturday coming up. But we have bigger indications what may unfold by the time we head into that last week of October. We're starting to be seeing the beginning stages of a pretty significant dip in the teleconnections, especially on the European ensemble guidance. That's a pretty significant dip in the deviations of this EPO, your East Pacific Oscillation. That's around the 23rd time frame. So that would put it towards that last week of October. And we're already starting to see the effects. The global models really haven't picked up on this yet, but some of the AI models have. And we're starting to see the beginning effects of that colder air mass, if not even some Arctic air by October standards, would likely start to come in from Canada and dive into our western regions. And this could be our more significant front as we head into that last week of October. So that is definitely going to be something we're going to be keeping an eye on and fine tuning. Of course, that is a long ways away. It's still essentially 2 weeks away, but I wanted to kind of give you an update on what may unfold, because we've had such a warm October across a good part of the country. We do have two stronger cold fronts with an even stronger cold front that may unfold by the time we head into that last week of October. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch me next update while I protect you before and after the storm.